I believe I'm still here. I know the hairlines keep going back, but it's me.
Lee Diffie, along with my booth mates, the Mayor of Hinchtown, James Hinchcliffe and Townsend Bell, well experienced at the Brickyard. And guys, we've been able to have the flexibility of choosing which ones we would like to do, and of course we could go way back through the decades, but one that's really fresh in our minds and for a very good reason, and that was the 2021 edition of the Indianapolis 500. We had to go through a pretty painstaking time of having nobody at the Speedway the year before in 2020, and it wasn't held in May. So to come back in 2021 and have the stands probably 2/3 to 3/4 full was fantastic. And I remember when the field was coming to green, you know, it's incumbent upon me to try and say something half intelligent or something inspiring or motivating. And the wide shots were there of the crowd, and it came to me in the moment that the soul is back at the Speedway, and that's what I said in commentary, because that was the fans. The fans were back, the soul was back. And it's with so much pleasure that I say, and you see, the soul is back at the Speedway. The fans are back in the stands. This is, and always will be, the greatest spectacle in racing, as they see the front straight for the very first time as they come to green. This is the Indianapolis 500 for everybody to see.
Ready right here.
It's a pilgrimage to go to Indianapolis every year, whether I did it as a fan when I was 11 years old or as a competitor for 10 times at the Indy 500. And I just remember feeling tremendous gratitude for the opportunity that we have to share the race with the world. And I also remember feeling incredibly satisfied for Roger Penske, someone who has been a big part of our lives one way or the other. If you're in IndyCar racing, if you're in racing in general, Roger Penske is a factor. The fact that he bought that track in 2019 in the fall and then had the worst possible timing to then have his first event, have those people come and see all of the enhancements and some of his contributions, I just felt very thankful. And little did we know, Lee, that we were about to witness
a massive piece of history.
A massive
piece of history. The history that Townsend alluded to was Helio Castroneves becoming part of the club, and that club was the 4-time Winners Club. And it really underscored the beautiful nature of live sport and what live sport can bring. And that was post-race. We're going to get to that in a moment. But there were some highlights in that race, and that is your old roommate or your old tenant, your old basement dweller, Connor Daly, led the most laps. He led 40 laps. And I will never forget the moment he took the lead in that race, the crowd erupted.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Every time he would pass back, the whole place where you just hear the eruption in the crowd. And it's just awesome seeing hometown boy, guy's worked so hard to be there. He's had to scrap his way up there, but he's in great cars, Red Carpenter Racing. And every time he took the lead there, it was just phenomenal to watch.
And in my lifetime, I can only think of a small handful of times that I've heard the crowd either on the broadcast watching or in person, and that would be the spin and win, Sullivan recovering and the crowd going crazy. That would be Danica leading her first laps. That would be probably TK, pulling off the win, and then Connor taking the lead. And so for Connor to be in that group and to experience that as a hometown kid, I'm sure that'll stick with him forever, regardless what happens of his career.
Thrilling run by Alex Palou. In just his second season in IndyCar. But then we get to the point of Helio Castroneves. Helio only led 20 laps of the race, so he led a 10th of the race. But he was, from memory, he was determined and he was there all day. You know, some people have problems that come back, some people are at the front, they drop back. Helio just kind of, to me, seemed consistent all day. Is that the way you remember it?
I just remember ferocious desire, and I think big part of that was Helio Castroneves and Team Penske inseparable for so much of his career, so much success, and then he sort of moved out a bit to the sports car program and, you know, still wants to be there, and then finally no longer a Team Penske driver, and then really wanted to come back. Meyershank gave him this opportunity, and I just remember this sense of Helio wanting to remind everybody why he's Helio Castroneves.
When you've been through what I've been through and able to accomplish that, the milk taste is still very fresh, and especially with such a young team and hard work team. I really want to give another win for them.
He was there all day. He was top 5, top 4, you know, but it wasn't until that final stint where it really all came together.
We went to an onboard video in the broadcast in that final stint, and I watched Helio's hands coming through traffic, and I knew that his 20 some odd years of experience at Indy was all coming together, to your point, because in traffic, 0 understeer. You could tell that he had tuned his weight jacker, his bars, and the adjustments in all of the previous pit stops. And his race car, forget pure speed down the straightaway, the balance of the car, which we talk about all the time, I could tell was just perfect in traffic. And going down the stretch, it's him versus a very young and inexperienced driver, and that's what played out.
So let's go to the end. And we're not shortcutting this, but I want to get to what I thought was the most beautiful piece of sporting theatre, because it wasn't staged, it was live, it was real, it was visceral. It was Helio Castroneves joining AJ Foyt, Alan Senior, and Rick Mears to become the only other driver to join that 4-time winners club. And in our role on television, we kind of have to juggle talking and then also what's called in the industry laying out, where you hear the cars and you hear the crowd, or you hear something atmospheric. And once Helio had crossed and all that radio transmission, and a couple of Midwest guys in Mike Shank and Jim Meyer had finally conquered the biggest race of the world as co-team owners, what played out, what unfolded in front of our eyes with the fence climb, the raw emotion, Mario Andretti coming in. What unfolded there, I remember seeing you get quite emotional as well, just what we were witnessing there in the moment.
It was the chanting of tens of thousands of people who normally, in a lot of years, races over, winners there, you see the stands dispersing, right? Everybody's gonna get going, get back to their hotel, go catch their flights, go home. And it was one of those rare occasions where nobody felt like leaving. Everybody knew that this is one of the most incredible moments in Indianapolis Motor Speedway history, and they wanted to stay, and they wanted to cheer, and they wanted to celebrate Helio's achievement. And going back to gratitude, I felt so lucky to be there and feel almost like what I think a Super Bowl winner would feel, or going back to, gladiator times, the chant from the Coliseum. It was authentic, it was passionate, and it was overwhelming.
That whole sort of celebration at the end lasted quite a minute, and obviously I heard on the cool down lap that he had won it, and you understand immediately the gravity of that situation. So I think most drivers got out of their cars, chatted to their teams for a minute, and then made their way over just to kind of give them a high five. And I'm with you. I love witnessing sports history being made. And so to be there to see it, obviously everybody wants to win for themselves, but if it wasn't going to be me, if it wasn't going to be whoever else, I'm sure everyone was deep down kind of happy to see that and to be there for it.
I remember my daughter hugging me, which was probably the first one that she saw it, and for me it was very, very special. Having, calling my dad again as well, that moment was really cool. Yeah, this is a family sport. A lot of people understand what I'm saying, that any other sport that you remember the toughest part, the beginning, The middle is probably the difficult one, that you don't know which direction you have to go. And then when you achieve those goals, you made the right decision.
And I also think, being fourth, tying the record, that's a lot. But I think when you ask a lot of athletes that get multiple championships or big wins, if it's the Masters in golf or Wimbledon or whatever, they'll always say that, which one was the best? Which one was your favorite? They always appreciate the most recent one. You gain something, you learn something, you grow, I think, as an athlete every time you hit one of those milestones. And you could see it in Helio, like, which one was your favorite? He goes, this one. This has got to be the one, because this is just so big. And if he wins another one, guess what? It's going to be that one.
It was great. I tell you, I never stopped believing in, and I can't believe that happens, because sometimes you just say words, but I believe for me, in this case, it was destiny for sure. And crossing that finish line, and I even remember saying in the radio, not in the radio, just to myself, screaming, "Can you believe it? We did it!" Like me and me. So that was a special moment that happens, and just a perfect testimony that people work hard, understand that sometimes they go through difficult scenarios. If it meant to be, will be.
Is it destined to be Indianapolis 500 history that there will only be 4-time winners, or is it possible? And he's just won his third Rolex 24 at Daytona. He's driving as well as ever at
in a
48.
row.
In a row. Is it possible?
I'll say this. With most champions, with most winners in most sports, we are usually able, as commentators, as fans, as fellow competitors like we have with Helio, it's usually pretty easy for us to put the finger on the specific attributes that make that person the winner, the champion. But with Helio Castroneves, there's a magical quality. And you would never want to bet against that magic.
Yeah.
So if you believe in magic, you believe in Helio.
Hi folks, Lee Diffie from NBC Sports here. If you truly enjoyed what you just watched, you can get more news, interviews, and highlights by subscribing to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube page. You can get it all, so go for it.